And in 1975, I moved back to San Diego, which is my hometown, and became the director of the center. And at that time, they were talking about having a gay pride march in San Diego. And I thought, oh, that's great. You know, I didn't realize that could happen. And so the center was kind of the focal point for meeting groups at that time. So the group was meeting there, and my partner at the time, Carolyn Innes, and I were the only ones who'd ever had any experience with this kind of thing. We had done 2 marches, and at that point, maybe 2 marches in Philadelphia. So we were kind of looked to as like experts. You know, it's like little did they know how little we knew, but so. That's how I got involved in 1975 in the first organized Gay Pride March in San Diego, which gathered at a place called Hobo Park in downtown San Diego, right downtown San Diego, opposite a bar whose name I can't recall.
BJ's.
No, was it BJ's? Yeah, it probably was BJ's, and where condos exist today, and we marched up Broadway and then up 6th Avenue rather, to Balboa Park, and we had our very first rally in the little bowl area there where they have the rally today, or have been having the rally today, and we had a little box kind of stage and a little hand microphone, and anybody who wanted to speak got up and spoke, and we were there most of the afternoon. The hillside there was pretty much full of people. I'd say there were a few hundred. There would probably be a number in the few hundreds, and it was just it was really nice. It was just kind of and we had Barbara Giddings came, who at that time was a very early pioneer in the LGBT movement, and had become a personal friend of mine because her home base was Philadelphia, so she came out. And Alan Spear, who had been the first openly gay person in a state assembly, who was a state assembly person in Minnesota at the time. And so they came out and they were our keynote speakers, and we just had a grand time. Yeah. We couldn't have asked for a better promo for getting people out. You know, like 75, 76, there, people showed up, but it was more like the hundreds than approaching the thousands. But Anita Bryant, first of all, she had a national platform, and she was spokesperson for Florida Orange Juice, and she was going, and then she got into the Save Our Children campaign, and she was going on and on and on about how horrible it was for homosexuals to be, I think, in the same room, if not the same state as children. And so she got all this national attention, and it made a lot of people angry, not just people in the LGBT community, but it was so outrageous. Her statements were so outrageous, and anytime you have an outrageous enemy like that, it encourages people to speak out, and they'll finally just say, this is ridiculous. I can't put up with this. And so, although Anita Bryant never came to San Diego, it still was a focal point, because we could say, we've got to fight this movement in the country about attacking gay people or the gay community, and about blaming us for everything. And so we could use that as a media tool. And we had a No on 6 campaign. I was part of the statewide planning group on that. And beyond his ability to help us, it's just like today, the far right uses us to raise money. So we had this great enemy that we could raise up and use to energize people and show them what the threat really looked like, and what kinds of things that they were trying to do to us. And it was not just keeping gay teachers out of the schools, but they didn't want anything having to do with homosexuality taught in the schools. And so that allowed us to get a great alliance with the teachers union. The other thing that happened with John Briggs, I think, is that it created this statewide network. I mean, there was a burgeoning movement in San Diego. LA had their center. San Francisco had always been a gay mecca, both socially and now politically. But we never really talked to each other that much. So this gave us a statewide organization. We had a statewide organization to fight an initiative, and we had weekly meetings. I was always flying to the LA area or the San Francisco area. Rarely did they come down here to meet, but we had these a statewide steering committee, and every time John Briggs got on TV, it really helped us. And so that allowed us to have a real focus for the parade. It was a we save our teachers, tell John Briggs what you think, that kind of thing, and people showed up. And then we started to have, and I think once people come to an event like that, they're much more likely to come the following year. So we began, but those 2 years, I think I agree with the other speakers that they were a catalyst. Those two people were catalysts for helping us. Well, I think first of all, Doug got together people who had been involved over the years and had a commitment to making this, putting this on a solid footing, so that we didn't have to do that kind of running around at the last minute, or somebody who's totally inexperienced jumping up and saying, "Well, I'll do it," But this way we could build kind of the experiential framework, so that even if the leadership changed, there'd be a place for people to learn how to do it. So you'd have a training ground, a place for people to get their feet wet on it, and they wouldn't be thrown into it cold. And we thought that the one thing we had to do was hire a professional organizer, and that was key. And so we got Tim, and we started from nothing. We went out and borrowed money from the businesses and promised to pay it back, which we did. And I think we've been on a solid financial footing since the very first year. When we got Tim, we got somebody who had experience putting on large events. He had done Art Walk, I think. And so we were very, very fortunate in getting him. And he had not been totally open as a gay man, but I don't think he was totally closeted either. And he just decided that this was something he wanted to do. It was a skill that he had, and it was a way he could contribute to the community. And he took a cut in salary, and he came and took the job. So I think having somebody who knew how to do events, and that first year of organization in '89 was really very important. And he taught us a lot. I mean, we had done the grassroots kind of thing, but now we were looking at, here's how you get a permit, here's how you do all this kind of stuff, and here's how you do it in a responsible way. I don't mean that the others were irresponsible. I mean in an organized way. That here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3. You start 8 months in advance. You don't wait till 8 weeks before the event. It was that kind of level of professional approach to organization, and we began almost right away to move the board away from direct working involvement, direct. And we began to be more of a policy board and more of a directing kind of board, the way that, so that you had that separation between management and production. And so it worked very well, and that I give a lot of credit to Tim for that, us coming out in the black. And his contacts too. He had good contacts in the entertainment community and in some of the other kinds of things that you need to do to organize this kind of event. So and so we began to grow from there. And the board made a very solid commitment that we would never spend down more than, we would always have in the bank at least whatever it was, 80%, I can't remember what I think it's 80% of our budget for the next year. We would keep that in reserve. Whatever else we did, we would keep that in reserve.